Chapter 2. The Analyst. The smooth leather seat of the town car did little to ease the tension coiled in my shoulders. I barely registered the historic brick facades and snow-dusted storefronts of downtown sliding past the tinted window. Just gray slush, and the stark, bare branches of trees skeletal against the late January sky. My focus was narrowed to the crisp, data-filled screen of my tablet and Taylor's clipped voice speaking into my ear via my Bluetooth headset. So cross-reference the Altair acquisition chatter with the Shanghai index fluctuations, Taylor, I instructed, keeping my voice calm and precise. The tone I used for navigating multi-million-dollar strategies for the Stonewall Family Foundation. Standard deviation analysis. Flag any outliers above 0.5%. And I want preliminary risk models by end of day. Numbers were clean. They made sense. Unlike this assignment, bringing me here to the Veridian Arts Center, home of the Veridian Ballet Company. Understood, Mr. Stonewall, Taylor replied. Efficient as always. Renee, Veridian Ballet assessment? I allowed myself a small sigh, glancing away from the reassuring solidity of the quarterly reports towards the imposing brick and glass facade of the Arts Center, looming ahead through the sleet-streaked window. Yes, heading in now. The initial reports from their finance committee were opaque, let's say. Specifically, the expenditure line for pointed shoes is anomalous, significantly exceeding industry benchmarks for a company this size. That, coupled with persistent anecdotal reports filtering up to the board regarding dancer exhaustion, potential injuries linked to scheduling. I paused, rubbing my temple briefly. This felt messy, inefficient. Frankly, Taylor, it suggests either gross inefficiency in resource management or something more systemic impacting dancer welfare. The Foundation's grant stipulates operational oversight. And my family name, the Stonewall name, was attached to that grant. Someone has to ensure the Stonewall legacy isn't funding chaos, however artistically packaged. Your brief remains discrete assessment first, Mr. Stonewall? Eyes on the ground, I affirmed. Observe workflow, rehearsal conditions, resource deployment. I need to understand the variables before proposing solutions. Quantify what can be quantified. Document the rest. Let's see if the operational reality aligns with the fiscal reports or the rumors. I'll dictate notes later. I ended the call, the silence in the car suddenly feeling heavy, amplifying the hum of the engine. The arts. Not my usual world. I could appreciate the polished end product on a stage, but the process felt whimsical, governed by temperament and tradition rather than logic. Why did tiny slippers made of satin and glue cost upwards of $100 and last, according to whispers, mere hours? Why push highly trained athletes, because that's what these dancers were, to the point of exhaustion that risked costly injury? It defied efficient operational principles. The car slid smoothly to the curb before the main entrance. I gathered my tablet and slim leather briefcase, adjusted the knot of my silk tie. My armor. The automated doors hissed open and I exited into the biting late January air. A raw wind whipped down the street, carrying the smell of frozen pavement and damp wool. I gave a curt nod to the driver and strode purposefully through the main entrance into the building's welcome, if slightly stuffy, warmth. The lobby was hushed, minimalist. Polished concrete floors reflected the somewhat harsh indoor lighting. Abstract sculptures stood sentinel in pools of light. From somewhere down a long, quiet corridor, faint piano music drifted. Repetitive, melodic, insistent. I followed the sound, my polished Oxfords clicking softly on the floor. Framed posters adorned the walls. Elegant images from past glories. Swan Lake, the Sleeping Beauty, last season's ubiquitous Nutcracker. The music. The music grew louder, joined now by the rhythmic, percussive thud-thud, point-skitter-thud of dancers' feet hitting the floor, and the sharp, commanding bark of a male voice delivering corrections in heavily accented English. The heavy studio door muffled the piano music effectively. I paused for a moment in the quiet corridor, adjusting the knot of my tie. A grounding ritual before stepping into unfamiliar territory. My conversation with Taylor still echoed in my mind. Anomalous expenditures, rumors of burnout, the Foundation's requirement for accountability. This wasn't a standard portfolio review. I pushed the door open gently, letting it fall shut behind me with a soft click. The shift in atmosphere was immediate and jarring. The air in the cavernous studio was warmer than the corridor, and the heat compounded the sensory overload that hit me. The sheer volume of the live piano, relentlessly pounding out a slightly melancholic melody, bounced off the high ceilings. Before me, 30 or so dancers moved across the floor, some in perfect unison, others clearly struggling. The humid air, thick with the smell of physical exertion, that sharp, specific scent of sweat, mingled with the powdery sweetness of rosin. A nervous-looking administrator hovering near the entrance caught my eye, gestured vaguely towards the imperious figure of Maestro Volkov pacing near the front, and then retreated quickly, clearly eager to escape the charged atmosphere. I gave a curt nod, though Volkov didn't notice, his entire focus locked on the dancers. My suit felt stiff and overly formal amidst the sea of leotards, tights, and sweat-dampened warm-ups. The contrast was stark. My world of calculated decisions and market analyses versus this realm of raw physicality and artistic temperament. A nervous-looking administrator hovering near the entrance caught my eye, gestured vaguely towards the imperious figure of Maestro Volkov pacing near the front, and then retreated quickly, clearly eager to escape the charged atmosphere. I gave a curt nod, though Volkov didn't notice, his entire focus locked on the dancers. I found an unobtrusive spot in front of the mirror, leaning lightly against the cool glass, the faint vibrations from dozens of feet hitting the floor traveling subtly through the structure. I slid my slim tablet from my briefcase, its cool, familiar weight a small comfort. Time to work. Board needs answers. Foundation investment requires oversight. The internal checklist began. The Veridian budget is hemorrhaging funds somewhere, and the pointe shoe expenditure is, Exhibit A, unsustainable, without clear justification. Add the persistent whispers about dancer burnout. Is it poor scheduling? Inadequate conditioning resources? Or Volkov pushing them past a reasonable limit? It all points to potential inefficiency. Or worse, negligence. Risk management failure? Need to assess. My job, as I saw it, was clear. Observe, analyze, identify the systemic flaws, and propose logical, efficient solutions. Data points first. My analytical gaze began its sweep. I had to acknowledge the undeniable athleticism on display. The strength, the flexibility, the sheer endurance required was objectively impressive. The discipline was absolute, almost militaristic. But Volkov's methods, they seemed borderline brutal from a human resources perspective. His voice, sharp and laced with disdain, cut through the music constantly, demanding repetitions, dissecting movements with surgical precision, offering little I could perceive as positive reinforcement. Standard practice for high art? Or a liability lawsuit waiting to happen? Note: research industry norms for training intensity versus injury rates. I quickly noted the exhaustion wasn't limited to one or two individuals. It was a pervasive haze over the entire group. I could see it in the slight heave of chests fighting for air in the cool, dry studio air. The sheen of sweat on nearly every brow despite the late January chill outside. The focused, almost grim determination replacing genuine artistic expression in some faces. Widespread fatigue confirmed. Correlate with reported schedules. Factor in post-nutcracker recovery. Potential unreported hours. My gaze drifted, inevitably, to the economics of the scene. This vast studio space. Prime real estate in the Veridian Arts Center downtown. The salaries. Volkov's, the pianists. Madame Moreau, according to the staff list. Support staff. And then, the shoes. My eyes tracked the dancers' feet. The relentless, thud-thud skitter wasn't music to my ears. It was the sound of assets depreciating at an alarming rate. Even from the back of the room, the condition of many pointed shoes was visibly poor. I zoomed in slightly with my tablet's camera, capturing stills discreetly. Frayed ribbons, satin worn through to canvas, the supportive boxes looking crushed and misshapen. How old are these pairs? Days? Hours? What's the failure point? Material defect? Extreme usage intensity? Environmental factors like floor friction or the dry winter air? The shoes became a tangible focal point, a quantifiable symptom of the potential systemic issues I was here to diagnose. I needed data on their life cycle, costs, and replacement frequency. I continued my analysis, moving beyond the initial impression of chaos to discern the underlying patterns. The corps de ballet executed a series of intricate formations, weaving and unweaving with remarkable precision despite the visible strain. Volkov stopped them abruptly. Again, from the diagonal, the line is ragged. Lily, anticipate the turn. Chin up, Mia. Ill. He gestured impatiently, demonstrating a sequence of steps himself, with a surprising, almost predatory grace that belied his age. The dancers reset instantly, faces impassive masks of concentration. Volkov clapped sharply again, his focus narrowing. "Laurent, center, variation, from the peak turns." His voice, if possible, held an extra edge when addressing her. My focus locked onto her. "Laurent, Elena, Principal, Giselle." She moved to the center without hesitation, her posture radiating a calm that seemed almost defiant amidst the surrounding tension. Her technical prowess was immediately obvious, even to my untrained eye. The clean, precise lines, the seemingly effortless balance held a breath longer than seemed possible. The fluidity that made the punishing choreography look light as air. But, as she absorbed Volkov's terse instructions, nodding almost imperceptibly before launching into the demanding sequence, I saw more. I saw the minute adjustments she made, compensating for what must be screaming muscles. I saw the careful, measured control of her breath, rationing energy. I saw the flicker deep in her dark eyes as she executed a turn. Not the innocent joy of Giselle, but a profound, intelligent weariness, a strategic assessment of the task ahead. She was, I realized, a walking embodiment of the entire company's paradox. Grace born from grueling effort, beauty masking potential breaking points. She was the undisputed center of gravity in the room, technically superior, yet she seemed to carry an invisible weight far heavier than the demands of the choreography. The investigation, I suspected, had just found its primary, and most compelling, variable. Volkov stepped back slightly, arms crossed, giving her the floor. Madame Moreau at the piano took a breath and launched into the demanding tempo of Giselle's Act 1 variation. My attention narrowed, filtering out the graceful core members lining the walls, focusing solely on Elena Laurent. She moved through the opening phrases with breathtaking speed and precision. Intricate footwork that barely seemed to touch the floor, sharp turns that ended in perfectly held balances. The illusion of effortless lightness was almost complete. Almost. I forced myself to look beyond the artistry, back to the data points. Quantify the effort. I noted the rapid rise and fall of her ribcage, subtle but visible even under the leotard. Oxygen intake clearly high. During a sequence of quick, connecting steps, piqué turns, I believe they were called, I saw her head tilt almost imperceptibly, compensating for momentum, her eyes fixed on a point to maintain balance. Textbook technique, perhaps, but executed with an intensity that suggested zero margin for error. There was no relaxation, no visible joy mirroring the character she portrayed, only profound concentration. Then came the hops on point, a series of small, incredibly demanding jumps performed entirely on the tips of her toes. The sound shifted from light skitters to sharp, percussive impacts against the floorboards. Thwack, thwack, thwack. I focused my gaze, even leaned forward slightly against the wall, watching her feet. Her right shoe, in particular. With each hop, I could see the reinforced toe box, the platform she balanced on, visibly compress, then spring back slightly. Tiny creases appeared in the satin near the sole. The stress on the structure was immense. How many landings like that, before the carefully constructed layers of glue and fabric simply gave way? Was this rapid degradation intentional, a way to achieve a specific softness needed for the role? Or was it simply the cost of doing business at this elite level? A cost the budget clearly reflected? Need comparison data. Shoe lifespan versus specific choreographic demands. Volkov let her finish the sequence, his expression unreadable. He didn't offer praise, merely a curt nod. Better, Laurent. But the arms lack yearning. She is reaching for love, not swatting flies. Again, from the piqué turns. She nodded once, betraying no frustration, just slight fatigue as she tried to catch her breath. A subtle sheen of sweat now clearly visible on her temples and collarbones. She took her starting position, exchanged a brief glance with Madame Moreau, and the music began again. The repetition seemed brutal, bordering on punitive, yet Laurent attacked the steps with the same fierce precision. This time, I watched her arms, trying to understand Volkov's correction through my analytical lens. Yearning. How does one quantify yearning in muscular extension? It was this subjective layer, this translation of abstract emotion into precise physical execution, that felt so alien compared to the clear metrics of finance. Yet, I could see a subtle difference in this repetition. A softer curve to her elbows, a slightly higher lift through the fingertips. She was processing the abstract correction and translating it instantly into tangible movement. Impressive. As she finished the second run-through, landing the final pose with unwavering balance despite the visible tension now in her shoulders, Volkov finally seemed satisfied. Or perhaps just bored. Core positions. Peasant pas de deux. While the designated couple took center stage and Volkov turned his critical eye towards them, Laurent moved discreetly towards the side, not resting, but executing a series of slow, controlled stretches. She carefully started to regulate her breathing from the gasps of exertion to a controlled rhythm. I used the opportunity of Volkov's diverted attention to study her more closely. The dark hair escaping her severe bun clung damply to her neck. Her leotard was dark with sweat down her spine. She favored her left leg slightly as she stretched her hamstring. A minute adjustment I might have missed if I hadn't been looking so intently. The puzzle deepened. The physical output was immense, the conditions demanding, the coaching style abrasive. Yet she endured, even excelled, masking the strain with almost perfect control. But the evidence, the widespread fatigue, the shoe expenditure, her own tightly held weariness, pointed to an unsustainable system. Was she simply an exceptional outlier in resilience? Or was there something else supplementing that endurance? Something hidden behind those intelligent, guarded eyes? The need to understand the discrepancy, the variable she represented, grew stronger. Observation from afar was yielding diminishing returns. I needed direct input, needed to get past that formidable professional shield. But watching the way she held herself, the cool reserve even in her exhaustion, I suspected that conversation would be a challenge in itself, a necessary one. As the peasant pas de deux couple finished their section, Maestro Volkov clapped curtly, offering a terse, acceptable, which, judging by the relieved slump of the male dancer's shoulders, counted as high praise in this environment. 5 minutes, everyone, he announced to the room at large, though his gaze was already zeroing back in on his principal. Laurent, stay. We refine the hops. From the preparation. A collective exhale seemed to ripple through the corps de ballet as they broke formation, heading gratefully for water bottles, towels, or simply collapsing onto the floor against the mirrored walls. The energy level in the room dropped slightly, the intense focus dissipating into individual moments of recovery. This brief pause, this slight clearing of the stage, offered a prime opportunity. I shifted my position slightly along the back wall, allowing for a clearer line of sight as Elena Laurent moved back to the center, listening intently to Volkov's low, rapid-fire instructions. Now, with fewer moving bodies distracting the eye, I focused deliberately on the state of the equipment. The pointe shoes. My tablet's camera allowed for a discreet zoom, confirming my earlier impression. It wasn't just one or two pairs nearing the end of their life. It seemed pervasive. Ribbons, meant to be pristine satin anchors, were visibly frayed near the ankles on several dancers stretching nearby. On Laurent's shoes, the wear was even more pronounced. The pink satin over the toe box was scuffed away entirely in patches, revealing the pale canvas beneath. During the variation she'd just danced, I'd seen the platform itself, the flattened tip she balanced her entire weight upon, compressing visibly with each landing. Now, standing relatively still, her right shoe's platform looked almost soft, misshapen, deformed. How is that structurally sound? I made a quick note on my tablet. Pointe shoe degradation analysis. Observe wear patterns across multiple dancers. Note specific choreography correlated with accelerated wear, e.g., hops, repetitive point work. Hypothesis 1. Substandard materials/construction from supplier? Check procurement records. Brand, model, cost per unit, supplier consistency. Hypothesis 2. Excessive usage hours beyond design limits. Cross-reference rehearsal logs, dancer schedules. Hypothesis 3. Environmental factors? Assess studio floor maintenance, friction coefficient if possible. Hypothesis 4. Insufficient allocation per dancer leading to overuse of worn pairs? Check inventory management, distribution protocols. Or hypothesis 5. Something else entirely? The sheer rate of destruction felt illogical, disproportionate even to the high demands I was witnessing. It was a significant, quantifiable anomaly demanding investigation. My attention snapped back to Laurent, Elena, as Volkov stepped away and nodded to Madame Moreau. The piano resumed the specific, driving rhythm for the hops on point. Elena took a preparatory breath, her expression tightening into absolute focus, and began the sequence. It looked punishing, a series of rapid, consecutive jumps, landing squarely on the tiny platform of one shoe, then the other, over and over, while maintaining perfect posture and line. I watched, mesmerized despite my analytical detachment, admiring the sheer physics of it, the strength, the balance, the control required. But I also saw the cost. I saw the slight tremor she suppressed in her ankles upon landing. I saw the almost imperceptible shift of weight onto her left foot immediately after the sequence finished, favoring the right for just a second before resuming a neutral stance. I saw the laser focus in her dark eyes, so intense it seemed to burn, pushing past pain, past exhaustion. When Volkov turned momentarily to confer with the pianist about a nuance in tempo, her hand darted down, quick as a snake, to briefly knead the muscle in her right calf before straightening up, expression unchanged, as he turned back. Pain, cramp, or chronic fatigue management? Another note. Laurent E. Principle. High technical proficiency exhibits significant fatigue indicators. Tremor, weight shifting, favoring leg, observed muscle manipulation, despite maintaining elite performance level. Contrast between apparent physical vulnerability and exceptional willpower is notable. Motivation/external factors? Potential key variable in fatigue/cost equation. The discrepancy was fascinating, compelling on a level beyond mere data analysis. She was clearly pushing her body to, and perhaps past, its reasonable limits. The question was why? Ambition? Volkov's pressure? Or something else entirely? Something hidden beneath the surface? Observation alone wouldn't answer that. Observation tracked the symptoms. The exhaustion, the destroyed shoes, the controlled strain, but not the cause. To understand the root of the problem, the inefficiency, the why behind the numbers, I realized I would need to get past the carefully constructed walls Laurent, and likely the entire company, maintained. I would need to talk to her. Judging by the cool, guarded composure she projected even now, dripping sweat under Volkov's unrelenting gaze, that wouldn't be easy, but it was clearly necessary. The puzzle demanded it.